Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord have mercy. I love NXT. I love this show. It is easily the best wrestling show on television. Easily my favorite show. So easy to watch. So much stuff happening. And you know what? They loaded up next week something so crazy. You think it was a pay-per-view. Shawn Michaels put more effort into next week's episode of NXT than Triple H has put into WrestleMania. Think about that. Let's get into this show, though. First, we got news and notes. There's going to be WWE ID championships, men and women's, because Triple H got to have more belts. I cannot believe there are more belts. Somebody told me there's now 21 championships in WWE. 21. These WWE ID belts will be defended by the WWE ID prospects on the independents. Oh God. And people are just concerned about whether WWE ID guys are going to be able to do jobs or not. Like, that fucking matters. Who cares whether they want to lose? The point is to get people in the building. That's the important bit. And it may be a thing where they only defend against other ID talent. We don't know that yet. I also am not sure if these are going to be the Evolve championships, because I kind of had a feeling that it might be. Because I think the ID and the Evolve system, I don't know if it's two different things or if it's going to cross over. They might as well be the same thing. But you remember last week, I think I said it because they talked about it, that there will be Evolve championships and there's going to be a belt for Evolve. Triple H is a belt mark. I think that these guys who make belts, man, they must got one of his kids tied up in the basement. That's the only reason you keep giving these people business, man. And the belts don't even look that great. It's just a WWE ID logo and it's silver, like the NXT belts. Just lazy. Stupid. All right, let's get into this show because I'm excited to talk about this show. Obafemi, he calls out the four goons, so they didn't finish the job, so he called them out to fight. But he doesn't get the four goons to come out and fight him. What he gets is Moose. Yes, the melted African moose. The gigantic man made of milk duds, Moose. Holy shit. He gets out there, he basically challenges Obafemi. Obafemi says, "One day, I'll get you." And then pretty much that's it. Later, Moose is challenged by Lexis King, who doesn't like that the TNA guys are showing up and not putting belts on the line. And Moose accepted his match. So next week is going to be Moose versus Lexis King, but they're also teasing Moose versus Obafemi. Let's talk about both those prospects. Moose versus Lexis King is likely going to be hilarious. All right, because for starters, it's in Lexis King's hometown. He's going to get the challenge for the X Division title. That's very nice for him. Very nice for Brian Pillman Jr. But Moose is going to get to be on WWE television. I'm not thrilled about that. Not thrilled. He's been pitching for this for ages, and he's been around for so long that I'm pretty sure it's nice for him. But I'm not a Moose fan. The last thing I think NXT needs is a Moose match. You know, we don't need Moose at all, period. But I'm pretty sure it'd be a nice little feather in his cap to get in front of a WWE audience and then finally get an opportunity. The guy's got to be like 40 at this point. So they're not in any danger of Moose getting poached. But him versus Lexis King, it feels like a setup. It feels like he's been set up for failure. Now, Moose versus Obafemi, it's just one of those things that looks good on paper. I mean, it looks good visually. Like, if you visually see Moose, he's as big as Obafemi's, you know, he got about 10 years on him, maybe 8 or 9. So, from that perspective, yes, because Moose is a big guy and he's got a lot of experience. He's mid as fuck, but he's got a lot of experience. So Obafemi can learn something from Moose. And kind of as a internet wrestling thing, it could be interesting, you know. So, I'm not a huge Moose guy myself. So I was more shocked that he was there, and I was not excited at all for him to be challenging Obafemi. But it's different for Oba. It's good for Oba. So I'll be happy for Oba, even though indirectly Moose is going to benefit. So Carmen Petrovich defeated Kalani Jordan and Jada Parker to be the number one contender to the women's North American title. Hell of a match these girls had. It was, of course, it was a little choreographed. You could see them thinking through things. Again, none of these girls have a ton of experience, but this was as good as it's going to get for these three. It was pretty good. Carmen Petrovich, the finish, interesting. Jada Parker does like a squash in the corner to Kalani Jordan, and she's kind of high stepping because she does her thing. Shani Diadonis then throws Carmen Petrovich from outside the ring back in, and she rolls Kalani Jordan up to get the pin. So Kalani Jordan was the one who took the loss. Sucks for her, I must say. Afterwards, there's a huge fight in the ring as Fatal Influence jumped Carmen Petrovich, and then they spend 3 minutes kicking her all up in her ass, kicking her everywhere. They beating her up in the ring. They beating her up outside the ring. And just mopping the floor with Carmen Petrovich, and nobody's doing anything. Nobody comes out there to help her. It's during the commercial break, so there's like 2-3 straight minutes of them kicking her ass. You'd think that there'd be like security or somebody coming out there to help, but no. They just left her to die. This is what a disaster. Then they finally come back from commercial, and Stephanie Vacker and Julia and Jordan Grace finally came out there and helped her. They set up a 6-man tag for the main event. Fatal Influence versus Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and Jordan Grace. Solid main event that was, with Jordan Grace getting the pin on Jasmine Nix. Jasmine Nix she looked a little lost at the end. I don't think she really fully understood what was going on. I think she was getting hit kind of hard too by Jordan Grace, because Jordan Grace is out there working. This is her first night officially on the job. She's trying to make a good example here. But, she was a little lost. But Jasmine Nix has the least amount of experience of anybody who was in this match. So it made sense for her to take the pin. It made sense that she looked a little bit lost. But overall, the match was pretty solid. Can't complain about that. All right. Eddie Thorpe. He's hanging out with these two guys who were in Chase University. I don't know what their names is. One of them named Uriah or something. Anyway, they want to throw a party because they're frat guys. They invite Ava to the party. She says no because, her choppers won't allow her to go to have fun. And Eddie Thorpe is there, DJ Tatanka. The party guys realize that Eddie Thorpe is a DJ. They invite him to the party. He's like, no. Then he starts talking about how Andre Chase is going to ruin their lives. He's an idiot. He's a moron. He's a buffoon. They get angry. And then they suggest that he fight Andre Chase since he's talking trash about him. Eddie Thorpe accepts that match. And then the two buffoons has to go and tell Andre Chase what they done did. And he's upset about this. But he goes out there to have the match anyway. The match was longer than it should have been, if we're being honest. Eddie Thorpe versus Andre Chase was longer than it should have been. Eddie Thorpe clearly won the match. I didn't really care about it, if we're being honest. The story is that these two guys, these two new students of Chase University, they're going to rebuild Andre Chase. So they showed up ringside wearing their Chase University sweatshirts. And, he was slightly distracted by them. But in the crowd is going for it. They want him to do his Chase U stomp and all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't want to do it. They're going to coax Andre Chase into being Andre Chase again. And the crowd's there with it, so at least that's working. But Eddie Thorpe wins. He's some kind of big shot now, apparently. And then we get a Trick Williams video where he says it's not over until he says it's over. And if he's going down, he's taking Eddie Thorpe with him. This is the only thing we saw of Trick Williams the whole night. That is not good. We needed more Trick Williams here, but we're getting a darker, angrier Trick Williams, which I guess is necessary. And I guess it's important considering he just got embarrassed by losing to this bum. And don't get it twisted, Eddie Thorpe is a sawed-off bum. But we're stuck with this now. I'm more interested in the Andre Chase story than in anything that got to do with Eddie Thorpe. Alright, so Stax and Rizzo was backstage as Rizzo's trying to figure out if Stax really want to do this. If he really, really, really wants to go out there and fight Shawn Spears by himself. And Stax asked if she had heard from Tony D'Angelo. She said no. Luca also hadn't heard from Tony D'Angelo, so he said he's going to go step up. He's going to handle this himself. So he goes out there and he has a match with Shawn Spears, and oof. I don't like Shawn Spears. Everybody knows this. Shawn Spears, he is as useful as Monopoly money. He's worthless. Worth nothing. Right? Not even worth 2 cents rubbed together and shoved up a donkey's ass. He's garbage. Stax, on the other hand, has potential. He's very agile. His moves look good. He has decent charisma. Right now, he's best fit to be a sidekick. Maybe if you give him more time, he could be a breakout star on his own. But right now, he's very, very solid as a sidekick. But Shawn Spears won the match. Of course, they were cheating. It doesn't really matter. But I was very impressed by Stax. Stax was good. Okay, Zarya and Sol Ruka defeated Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. I was surprised that Jakara and Lash lost, considering the huge push they were getting just a couple of weeks ago. But they're also trying to make Zarya and Sol Ruka a thing. They've been doing the odd couple story, where Zarya is like this big brute, apparently, who don't know how to roller skate. And, oh my God, her ice cream fell into the sand. You know, weird stuff. Which doesn't make sense because we don't know really who Zarya is. She just got there. They haven't established her as a Bill Goldberg type character who is now being humanized by Sol Ruka. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing a character who came into the company with all of this great acclaim. Again, like she was going to crush the building, like she was going to, Furiosa, like I said before. And now she's just instantaneously in an odd couple tag team. Let me tell you about my best friend. Kind of shit, Anyway. Zarya spears Jakara Jackson, I'm sorry. She speared Lash Legend too, if that was earlier. But she speared Jakara Jackson, gave her an F5, and then she was right in position for a Soul Snatcher. And Sol Ruka pins Jakara Jackson. It was a good match. I like the Meta Girls. They work very well together. I don't think they're going to be on NXT much longer, though. Because the guys that were involved with the Meta 4, where did they go? Where did Oro Mensah... I know that Noam Dar, he's been in WWE almost 10 years now. I think he's injured. But Oro Mensah, I have no idea where he is. He might be injured, too. But you would have to think that both of those guys are on the chopping block, right? I mean, Oro Mensah is basically just Wesley with pink hair, isn't he? All right, speaking of Wesley, I just talked him up. He was backstage talking about the unpredictability of NXT, and as he's chatting, a bunch of people started walking by, and one of those people was Ricky Starks, and the announcer girl, the microphone holder, she's very disrespectful, super disrespectful. She left Wesley and his frosted hair to go talk to Ricky Starks. And Wesley's like, what? And I'm at the same time like, what? Like, that's disrespectful as fuck. She cut off her interview with him to talk to this guy. And Ricky Starks basically is pushing the idea he's going to sign this contract. And that's it. And so then we get Ava comes to the ring. And she got Ricky Starks out there. He's going to sign the contract. They don't got no theme music for him yet. They're keeping that from everybody. So he came out to the NXT theme, which is weird. And it just says contract signing. They don't tell you what his name is. They're dragging that one out. So he talks about signing, and Ricky Starks, before he talks, he says that signing here isn't a dream, it's a reality. Main eventing all the PLEs, winning the NXT title, it's all a reality because he's here to show up and show out. Before the contract is signed, he's interrupted by Ethan Page, who claims that Ricky Starks is following his playbook and he's sure there's a championship match in that contract. And then they go back and forth. Ricky Starks making the statement that Ethan Page is wearing his insecurity as tight as his jacket. Ethan Page claims that he set the bar for NXT. Ricky Starks brings up Javon Evans, says that guys like him don't go away. He's going to come back and going to whoop your ass. Ethan Page is upset about that until he gets his ass whooped by Javon Evans, who comes out of nowhere, and they start brawling. To Ricky Starks' credit, he didn't bother with it. He just kind of watched it occur. Kind of was like, okay, that's that. So he goes to try to sign the contract again, and now Wesley comes out. Very well done, by the way. Very subversive. Because everybody, they did the tease with Wesley earlier. But then they switched it on you and had Ethan Page be the guy. So then Wesley comes out. Wesley wants to tell him that what happened earlier was disrespectful. Even though Ricky Starks didn't do it, it was the microphone holder girl. She did it. She's the one who interrupted your promo. It wasn't Ricky Starks. He didn't do anything. He just walked by. Anyway, Ricky Starks is upset about this. Said, hey, maybe we should fight. And Wesley said, oh, okie dokie, just sign the contract. So as he's about to sign the contract, Wesley tries to get a sucker punch in, but Starks punched him. Then they brawled for a little bit. Wesley is yanked out of the ring. I think he might have got clotheslined over the top rope. He's held back by some officials as Ricky Starks signed his contract, and the contract does not say Ricky Starks. It says Ricky Saints. Ricky Saints. The internet then immediately explodes in Ricky Saints. Some people are saying, like, we're never going to call you that. That name is dumb. That name is stupid. It's not as bad as it could have been. It's not nearly as bad as it could have been. I think I get it. There's another Stark on the roster already, the Zoe Stark. I mean, you could just get rid of her, right? You could just fire her, but they're not gonna. But there's already a Zoe Stark. Maybe he doesn't want to sign over his name, which is what it probably is, that he just didn't want to sign over his name because now he owns it. I know a lot of people have said, like, why are they changing his name anyway? They didn't change Jordan Grace's name. What's happening here? But, I mean, it's an individual decision, I would imagine. Or something's up with that name. We probably won't know for quite a while. Maybe I said it before, maybe there's going to be something up with that name, that it's tied up in something else. And so now he has to use this name. I'm thinking he signed it over to AEW and they're going to keep hold of it. But that's just me being a conspiracy theorist, because a lot of people have said that AEW doesn't do that. They don't ask to, have partial ownership of that sort of thing. Like WWE, it's called intellectual property, for those of you who don't know. So a good example is AJ Styles, right? His name has been AJ Styles everywhere he's gone. AJ Styles owns everything AJ Styles. His look, the logo, the P1 logo, all that, the gloves, the whole 9 yards. He owns all of that himself. When he signs with WWE, he gives them the right to merchandise that, and you have to cut him in, right? So they own, quote unquote, the AJ Styles name only for the duration of the contract. So once the contract is over, all the AJ Styles merchandise, the intellectual property reverts back to Alan Jones, the man who created AJ Styles, right? So maybe there's a situation where the Ricky Starks intellectual property is in limbo or otherwise in use, and now you have to create Ricky Saints. Or it could just be he didn't want to do that, or it could just be that WWE didn't want to do that. But I don't see why the Triple H WWE would want to change his name. The Vince McMahon WWE, absolutely. But the Triple H WWE changing his name. I don't see the need for it. So something tells me that it probably was a necessity in order to get this thing done. It's going to be a laughing stock for a while, but people are going to get used to it once, because it's not that bad. You know, there has been people who have been renamed ridiculous things. I mean, there's a guy running around calling himself Lexus King, and we all know who that fucking guy is, right? He literally has a famous daddy, and he's going by somebody else's name. It's really insane what they do in NXT. But Ricky Saints it is. Ricky Saints. Okay. Sure. Anyway, they built this entire show around Ricky. They showed him when he showed up. They showed him walking around backstage. And then they showed him walking around after he signed his contract. He was very excited. And then he saw Hank and Tank along with Briggs and Inamura laying on the ground. And he was like, man, this place is crazy. These guys are getting knocked out all over the place. Because he's just been surrounded by chaos. There's been people fighting all night, you know. So I love that he's recognizing that NXT is out of control. It's a nutty place to be. It always is, by the way. So it's not like this is some reboot that they're doing. It's like Shawn Michaels loves this chaotic environment for NXT where there's constantly fights in the parking lot, fights backstage, fights at ringside. And sometimes you would think generic brawling would get boring because it does on Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, and everything else. But on NXT, for some reason, they keep it fresh. I don't know how they do that. But Ricky Starks was surprised to see Hank, Tank, Inamura, and all these guys laying on the ground. Backstage, he ran into Ethan Page again. And then they got into each other's faces. And then it ended up being a yelling contest between Ethan Page and Wes Lee versus Javon Evans and Ricky Starks. So Ava decided to ruin next week's match between Ricky Starks and Wes Lee by making it a tag team match, because she makes everything worse. She literally is the worst general manager. Ricky Starks' first match in NXT is going to be a tag team match, teaming up with Javon Evans. Look, great for Javon Evans. All right. Javon Evans, they give him all the rubs. He's getting rubbed down like a porn star, okay? I mean, they getting him in the middle of everything. Randy Orton showing up, put Javon Evans in it. You know, pay-per-views, put Javon Evans in it. You know, like he's being thrown into everything. Shawn must really like this guy. But he's tempered it because he doesn't always win. So, but he's been repeatedly exposed here. I was actually more interested in seeing Wes Lee versus Ricky Starks one-on-one, but I guess they can build that up. You know, give Wes Lee a little bit more time because he's not going to win the match, clearly. He's not going to win next week either. I expect Ricky to beat Wes Lee next week, leading to a singles match between the two of them, and I also expect Javon Evans' match with Ethan Page to spin out of that as well. But tag team match, I don't really care. I would have preferred it to be singles, but this works fine too. If they want to drag out Ricky Starks' his first match, because he want to sell his first singles match as the biggest match that he's going to have. Why that would be against Wes Lee, I don't know, but okay. So the final segment of this is Fraxium and the No Quarter Catch crew. So No Quarter Catch crew walks up on Fraxium. Fraxium says, oh, you want a tag team championship match? We're not giving it to you. You don't deserve it. So the No Quarter Catch crew is like, yeah, we weren't trying to talk to you guys anyway. We don't care about you. We want to fight the best tag team in the world. And Fraxium was like, but that's us. And they're like, nope, that's the Hardy Boys. And I'm like, Matthew and Jeffrey? They want to have Matt Hardy on NXT? Look, man, it's hard to get me excited about a show that's going to have Matt Hardy and Moose on it. I mean, the holy trinity of shits has got to be like Shawn Spears showing up, right? But right now, we got Matt Hardy and Moose. I'm like, man, it's going to be hard to get me to care about this. But the Hardy Boys, of course, did a video for Twitter where they agreed to the match. And they threw some jabs at Fraxium, calling themselves the greatest tag team of all time, the GOATs. And I'm interested in that. I like this. You know, I love Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne. Finally giving these guys a rub. I wish they was winning matches on TV to lead to this, though. That's a huge problem. They just sometimes do random. At least Lex is king. He's challenging for the X Division title. At the very least, he's won matches recently. And he's a champion in NXT. He's a Heritage Cup champion, which is not going to be a big deal when he loses, right? So it's mostly just to build Moose so that Moose will look credible against Obafemi. But in this situation, No Quarter Cash Crew never wins on TV. I don't know when the last time they won on TV. So I wish they would have gotten a chance to win like 3 matches in a row and then challenge the Hardys or something to get people to believe that they could win. That's a huge problem in modern wrestling, is you never believe that these guys can win. Ultimately, though, the Hardys are teasing a match with Fraxium. And Fraxium have been NXT Tag Team Champions for like 2 years, it feels like. And the Hardys have done their expedition of gold. They won every tag team championship in the business that they could possibly win, except the NXT tag team titles. And it's entirely possible that Fraxium will lose the titles to the Hardys. And I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe they're going to have that match, likely at some pay-per-view event, and the Hardys will beat Fraxium. Of course, that will lead to Fraxium winning the titles back, hopefully. But I can see that occurring. Look, I like the TNA crossover. It's been fun. It seems like TNA is being a little bit more giving. You know, they're giving them the Hardys, they're giving them Moose. You know, but on the other side, it's basically like Cora Jade and who else has showed up from NXT to, you know, I think Carmen Petrovich was over there for a short time. You know, so it's been, but this is the build that they were doing from the Vengeance Day show when Santino said he had some ideas about crossovers and stuff like this. They're teasing the crossovers now. They're teasing Moose and Obafemi. They're teasing the Hardys versus Fraxium. I think that they're going to do a crossover pay-per-view. And it's looking more and more likely that that's going to be the case. If they're going to have some kind of crossover pay-per-view. Can't wait for that. They need to go ahead and announce that. Go ahead and announce that. Apparently TNA shows are selling out all over the place now, even because of this crossover. Even though they're changing they're changing management again. I don't know what's up with that because they're doing well. So I don't know why they're changing management all over again. But they're teasing something big here with NXT and TNA as a crossover, and I can't wait. So they didn't really do anything with the 4 guys that jumped Obafemi and jumped the tag team guys last week on Vengeance Day. But at the very end of the show, there was a gigantic brawl that led to writing on the wall in Ava's office. Apparently they took out Robert Stone, Mr. Stone, and wrote "Nobody is safe" on the wall. The Vandals, they're doing bad stuff. There's crazy lighting in this scene. I mean, there's just all kind of flashing lights. Because apparently Ava's office leads right to the parking lot. You know, the most dangerous place in NXT, and is right outside of Ava's office. Maybe she's the toughest bird in the company at that point. She's just, you know, there could be B&Es in her office at any time. But, you know, NXT's got so much going on that they didn't even need to tease or do anything with these 4 guys. Like, they really debuted 4 guys on Vengeance Day and didn't really do anything with them on their show. They were still there. They were still present, but they didn't show up until the end. NXT has so much to do. Their top star and Trick Williams wasn't even on this show, but more than 30 seconds. I don't even think it was a full 30 seconds. And guess what? People were still excited about this show. See, that's what I mean by shit happens on the show. When I say nothing happens week to week on Raw or SmackDown, I don't mean they're just not debuts and surprises. I mean there's storyline development. There's things that were teased that are then followed up on in an exciting and unique way. NXT teased furthering their relationship with TNA. Boom, here comes Moose. Boom, here comes the Hardys. Exactly what they were talking about on Saturday. You want to have a new surprise guy pop up and sign a contract in the ring, you give him a feud immediately. Boom, he's feuding with Wesley immediately. You get him on the show quickly as possible. The match is not completely random out of nowhere. You built it, they built it up, gave it some time. You know, they built up off of every single story that they put together. They had the Fatal Influence kick the absolute shit out of Carmen Petrovich for winning the number one contendership to Fallon Henley's title, even though she lost it. And that's why they're pissed, you know. So pretty much everything they built up on. They at the end of the show, they still had Jordynne Grace standing in between Stephanie and Julia, again teasing which direction she's going to go in. Eventually, they're going to have to make a decision, and she's going to have to either fight one of them or be attacked by one of them or something like that. But look at what they're doing here. They're planting seeds. They're telling stories. They're watering some seeds. They're watching other things grow. This is what a wrestling show should be in the modern day. Not 45 minutes of fucking matches in a row that are obvious. Now, again, yes, I could do without Shawn Spears versus Stax. I could have done without Shawn Spears in general. But it furthered the story. It's furthering Stax's story. It's also furthering Shawn Spears' story. Shawn Spears wants to be the North American champion. Beating Stax helps him get there. Stax wants to be seen as more responsible. He wants to be a guy who takes charge. He's got to take some lumps in order to do that. You know? That's all well and good. I don't have... This NXT from top to bottom was straight solid. Everything that happened had a reason to happen. It was built up over time. It furthered something. The only issue I may have had here is the loss of the Meta Girls. I'm not sure what that means for them, considering they were super over just a couple of weeks ago before they lost to Bianca and Naomi. I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to slide back down. But the partnership between Zarya and Sol Ruka was something they were building up throughout Vengeance Day. It's something they've been showing video packages of them hanging out and trying to get on the same page. So NXT is making so much fucking sense, and it's a fun product. They're constantly doing new things, trying different people, trying and failing. Because again, I don't like Eddie Thorpe. I could do without Eddie Thorpe, you know. But again, that match was to further the story of Andre Chase and the rebuilding and the rebirth, the impending rebirth of Chase University. There's a lot going on here. Wait a second. I just saw that Ricky Starks was on Busted Open Radio and kind of talked about what may have happened between him and some of the guys at AEW. I do want to get this out. And I that's kind of what's going to add it to the NXT review, because talking about it separately is kind of pointless. So he was asked about his name. He said he liked it. Of course, it's tied to the New Orleans Saints, but he talked about the fallout of AEW. And he says, I will say this. There are some people who stuck their nose in my creative business that shouldn't have happened. Veterans. And that's it. I'll leave it at that. And if they got a problem with me, they got my number and text me about it. I think what it was is if it didn't work out for their creative, then someone had to get the boot. That's how I see it. But I'm not trying to be negative in my thought process about it. If you want to step on me to get ahead in your illustrious career, everyone has an illustrious career. Everyone should have an illustrious career. That is perfectly fine, but at the same time, I'm not wet behind my ears. Are we talking about Jericho or Edge? Ricky Stark's last match in AEW was March the 30th. On that show, I believe he lost to Top Flight. Him and Big Bill, they lost to Top Flight in the AEW World Tag Team Championship Tournament, which I believe was because Sting retired. I think Sting retired around this time, and Ricky Starks was in the tournament with Big Bill, and they lost to Top Flight. He was back in October, and that's when he had that moment in the ring with Edge, where he referred to Edge as Bug Eyes and said that being called a vanilla midget sent him over the edge. Yes. Is it Edge that's politicking and hurt this young guy's career? Was it Chris Jericho? It's impossible to know. There's a ton of veterans, quote unquote, backstage, production guys and other wrestlers, that could have done some damage to him. But if I would have had to venture a guess, I would probably say Chris Jericho. But I don't know, because Big Bill ended up with Jericho, and something tells me that Ricky Starks was supposed to be involved with that. That's just something within me is saying that he was supposed to be involved with the learning tree, and he didn't want to do it. So it's an interesting piece of business he put out here that he chose not to elaborate on, but very entertaining. So at least we know now that he was indeed sandbagged by somebody creatively. And when you look at where Ricky Starks was before he even put himself in that situation with Edge, he was wrestling Chris Jericho in singles matches and winning those matches, and then out of nowhere he ended up in a tag team. So that didn't make sense, and maybe that could be frustrating, So something tells me that it's going to be Jericho at the end of the day, that Jericho likely had some input on the creative of Ricky Starks, and because they had been working together in the early part of 2023 before Starks got the screws put to him, and that's about it. That would be unfortunate if true, but that's what it seems like, because right after he wrestled Chris Jericho and kind of got over as a big time heel, because remember he was wrestling Danielson, he was about to wrestle Punk and all that kind of stuff. That was when his momentum was going up. And then he started feuding with Jericho, and next thing you know, he was in a tag team. Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating, and maybe that's something he wasn't really all that interested in. But a lot of people are going to say it's Edge because that's where he had a problem with him and Edge getting into it in October. Was it October of 23 or October of 23? But I'm thinking it's Jericho. I think it actually happened earlier that year. The very fact that he was teaming with Big Bill at that point seemed a little beneath him. But we probably won't know until he decides to break ground on the conversation a little bit more. So I'm going to throw my name in the Jericho pot. What about you guys? I'll talk to you later. No one does it better.